In our previous lessons on topographical maps, we learned so much about the topographical maps and its significance with regard to the understanding of any given geographical area. We understood how topographical maps are a acute representation of all the physical features that appear on the Earth's surface, and it may include both natural as well as man-made formations. We also learnt the importance of contour lines and saw how we can use contour lines to find out or to map different types of landforms that could be found on the Earth's surface. So in all these lessons, one thing that we all noticed, and that one thing that was constant in all the topographical maps, was the use of colors. Even in this map on the screen, we can see that there are different colors in the given section of the topographical map, and each color helps us to identify a particular feature present on the given geographical area or the area of study. So from this given map, what do we understand? That there is a huge area that is colored in yellow, while there are some areas that are colored in green. We also have a river passing through here because it is colored in blue. So the yellow wash that covers most of the area here tells us that the land can be cultivated or is good for cultivation. That is, the land has fertile soil. On the other hand, we also have some areas colored in green, which means that these are forested areas. Now the blue line that is crossing through the map tells us the presence of a perennial river here. So there are different colors that we find on the topographical map, and each play a significant role in the identification of the features present there. We also have the red lines. If you remember from the previous lesson, these red lines refer to or are the grid lines which help us locate places in the given geographical area on the topo sheet. Besides these, we also have these horizontal and vertically moving red lines across the map that form small squares and provide us with the northings and eastings that help us locate places in the given geographical area on the topo sheet. So each color on the topographical map has its own importance. So let's take a look at another topographical map and let's see how we can identify different features using different colors. So here is a section of a topographical map, and there are a lot of colors present on this particular section. Now, as we learnt a while ago, we can see that most of the area here is colored in yellow. It means that the region is good for cultivation. It is good for the cultivation of different crops and is agriculturally productive. On the other hand, we also have a huge amount of area colored in green, which means that there is a presence of a forested area or a wooded area in this particular region. We also see the presence of blue line here. Now, what does that indicate? So the blue line here indicates the presence of a perennial river or a stream that has continuous source of water. However, there are also regions that are colored in black, and these tell us that the area here or the stream and river flowing through here does not have access to water throughout the year, and they are mostly dry. Therefore, they are seasonally filled rivers. Now, along the main river, which is perennial in nature or has access to water almost throughout the year, we also have its tributaries that join the rivers. So we can see that these tributaries are not blue in color, but they are black in color, right? So all these tributaries are denoted in the black color, which means that these tributaries are not perennial in nature and they do not have access to water throughout the year. So they are seasonally filled streams or rivers that join the main river or the parent river. We have a similar thing in the top of the map here, which also denotes that the river or the stream here does not have access to water throughout the year. Now, as we can see that most of the area is colored in yellow, which indicates a land that is cultivatable. However, there are certain areas which are colored in white. Now, what does that mean? That means that the land is a wasteland or a barren land, and it is not good for cultivation. It does not provide fertile soil. So these sections here that are colored in white indicates that they are wasteland or barren land. We also see the presence of brown lines in the white patches. Now what does that indicate? These brown lines indicate the contour lines. That means that there is a presence of any landform in this particular area. Now we have learned that the grid lines that are vertically and horizontally lines crossing the map are colored in red. But can you identify another feature that is also colored in red and is quite prominent in this given map? We can see that there are certain areas where we have red color blocks and they are mostly in clusters. For example, the area here, another area on the top left corner also shows us red color squares that are present in clusters. Now can you identify this feature? Well, we will learn about it in details as we proceed, but before that, if you want to revise on the importance and significance of colors on topographical maps, then you can click on the link below and access the iDictionary feature. In earlier times, people were mostly hunter-gatherers. They did not know how to cultivate the land. However, when they learned to till the soil and cultivate different crops, they learned the importance of agriculture. And they realized that food could be made available at all times. This led to the establishment of settlements, and eventually urban areas grew up. So settlements refer to city, town or village or any other form of agglomeration of buildings where people live and work. So settlements could be defined as any city, any village or any place or any agglomeration of buildings where people live and work. This is what is known as settlements. Now with regard to topographical maps, the red color squares that were present in clusters refer to a type of settlement that we find in topographical maps. So settlements that are an agglomeration of buildings where people live and stay are denoted as red color squares on the map. Now such settlements are usually found on plains and valleys. Why so? Because plains and valleys are places where the land is flat and the construction of building, railway lines and other administrative buildings becomes very easy. Besides, plains and valleys are drained by rivers, so they are rich in fertile soil and therefore they give us opportunities for the cultivation of various crops, making them agriculturally productive area, and this eventually leads to the increase of economic activities and the existence of people who can live there and earn a living. So plains and valleys are the best places for the establishment of settlements. In this particular map here, we can see that we have a cluster of a lot of settlements in this region. Why so? Because the region is mostly colored in yellow, denoting that it is agriculturally very productive, which favors the establishment of such settlements. Besides that, we also see the existence of many metal roads across the map, which tells us that the communication line here is very strong. People can easily travel to places and carry on with their day-to-day affairs. It also helps in the transportation of passengers and commodities, which helps in the trade and commerce of the given geographical area. So settlements are what can be found mostly on areas that are good for cultivation and provides opportunity for the cultivation of various crops. A very good example of such settlements could be found in the northern plains of India. The northern plains comprises of a lot of states which are densely populated, mostly because this region is drained by a lot of important rivers or the major rivers of India, including Ganga and Yamuna and their tributaries. So the region is agriculturally very fertile, and this gives the opportunity for the establishment of such dense population in India. Besides that, settlements are also found along places that are mine areas or industrial areas. For example, Mumbai and Delhi, which are metropolitan cities, also favors the establishment of a dense population and such settlements. So here we understood the meaning of settlements and saw how different factors lead to the establishment of settlements. Now that we understood the meaning of settlement and saw how different factors affects or influences the establishment of the same, we need to understand that settlements can be broadly classified under two categories depending on the time period for which people are living and working in a given geographical area. So on this map we can see that there are certain areas where we have clusters of settlements, right? Right here, and another one here and here too. However, there are some places we do not find clusters of such settlements, and these red color boxes are also not colored or they are not filled. For example, at the top right corner we have a settlement which is a red square but is not colored or not filled. What does that mean? It means that this settlement is temporary in nature, while these settlements that are completely filled and colored are permanent settlements. Now what is the difference? Well, we can see that the temporary settlement is what we can find in the top right corner, where the land is barren or the land is not good for cultivation. However, permanent settlements like these are what we can find along a metal road and also in a place where it is surrounded by an area that is agriculturally very productive. And we also see the presence of a river here, that is the Sipu Nadi, which also helps in the fertility of the banks of this river, giving rise to opportunities for the cultivation of various crops. So such factors here attract people and help them to build permanent houses here or live here permanently, because these factors favor long-term settlements. However, regions like these where we do not have access to proper communication line or we do not have the availability of land and water, here the settlements are temporary in nature. So in temporary settlements, we usually have huts and tents that are built for a short period of time and for immediate purposes. So such settlements are usually constructed by hunter-gatherers or people who still practice shifting cultivation. However, permanent settlements are mostly seen in urban areas or towns where people have access to all sorts of facilities along with a good amount of land and water. Thus, settlements could be broadly categorized as temporary or permanent settlements. The settlements could be of two types depending on the time period for which people live and work in an area. So, settlements could be of permanent nature or they could be of a temporary nature. So settlements that are permanent in nature are denoted in red color squares that are also filled with the red color. However, temporary settlements are shown on the topographical maps as red color squares, but they are not filled by the red color. So they are empty red boxes. So this is how the permanent and temporary settlements are denoted. So to define permanent and temporary settlements, we could say that with regard to temporary settlements, we have permanent houses built in areas with enough land and water. And this eventually leads to the formation of permanent settlements. So when permanent houses are built in areas with enough land and water for cultivation, it leads to the formation of permanent settlements. And along with the availability of enough land and water for cultivation, communication lines become very important for the establishment of such settlements. Communication lines may include roads, railway lines, telephone lines, telegraph lines, and other such communication lines that will help people communicate to each other even at long distances. So, communication lines become very important for the establishment of permanent settlements. Now, on the other hand, we have temporary settlements. So, temporary settlements are ones in which huts and tents are constructed and they are occupied for a short period of time, and these are usually built by people who are hunter-gatherers or still practice shifting cultivation. However, in urban areas, we can find such temporary settlements along riverbanks, near flyover and bridges, and also in construction areas. So these are permanent settlements and temporary settlements that we find on topographical maps. Now, permanent settlements again could be of two types. So, depending on the availability of different resources and other essentials like hospitals, post office, and other administrative buildings, and on the level of development of the area, permanent settlements could be urban in nature or rural in nature. So, while on this map we can see the presence of metal roads, cart lines, telephone lines, the availability of water resources, and many other such things. And most importantly, the land is good for cultivation. So the presence of all these factors leads to the establishment of permanent settlements and urban settlements, right? So the region here is very developed because of the presence of such essential factors, and thus they are more developed in comparison to places where such essential factors are not available. So on this map we can see the presence of rivers that are not perennial in nature. We have forested areas, and we also have places that are good for cultivation. However, we do not have access to enough communication lines. We have only one metal road in this region, and thus such region lead to the establishment of rural settlements that are permanent in nature. So they are less developed in comparison to areas that has the presence of all essential factors. Now, settlements could also be categorized into three types depending upon the arrangement of these settlements. Let's see what are the three types of settlements depending upon the arrangement or pattern of settlement. So the first is the nucleated type of settlement. So nucleated settlements, which are also known as clustered settlements, are usually settlements that are found in clusters, right? So these settlements are found in clusters. So here is an illustration that shows us how we can identify nucleated or clustered settlements. We can see that all the huts and buildings are clustered together in an area. So such an arrangement calls for a nucleated or clustered settlement. Now, where exactly do we find such settlements? Well, we can see here in this map that such settlements are usually found in places where we have enough access to communication lines and other important essential factors that leads to the growth of such settlements. Now, nucleated settlements are what we can find in plains and valleys where the land is fertile for agriculture and it favors the cultivation of various crops. So we can see that this particular region, this region here, and this region here shows us nucleated or clustered settlements. And the establishment of all these settlements was majorly because there are so many essential factors present in the region. We have the presence of metal roads that will help people travel to long distances. We have the presence of a perennial distributary of a river which provides enough water for industrial and domestic purposes. Besides that, we also have the presence of rice mills here, which means that the region is also industrially very developed besides being agriculturally developed. And we also have worship places, temples, mosques, and many other such things that favors the establishment of any urban area where the population is tend to increase and it usually becomes a densely populated area. So such areas are where we usually find nucleated or clustered settlement. So before we proceed with our lesson, could you help me fill in the blanks? Nucleated settlements are also known as clustered settlements or linear settlements or nuclear settlements. Well, the correct answer is nucleated settlements are also known as clustered settlements. Therefore, nucleated or clustered settlements are usually found in plains and valleys, indicating that the communities are living on agriculturally productive land, right? So here is an image that shows us a nucleated settlement. We see the presence of a river, we have bridges, we have roads, and we see that all these are clustered in a given area. The area around is also agriculturally rich with the presence of cultivated land, and such an area is a nucleated area. Now in India, for example, such areas are what we can find in the northern plain region, where the region is drained by major rivers of India and its tributaries. Now another type of settlement that we can find on topographical map are linear settlements. Now in the same map where we had clustered settlements, we can also see that there are some settlements that we can find along the metal road, right here and here too. Now what do these settlements tell us? Well, in such settlements we can see that the buildings and huts are built along the roads, railway lines or river banks. So such a settlement is known as linear settlement. Now these settlements generally encompass houses, shops, petrol pumps and garages that develop along roads, railway lines or river banks. So here we have two pictures that show us the presence of linear settlements. We can see that along the river bank we have these settlements, and here we can see that along a railway line we also have settlements. So such settlements are what are known as linear settlements. The linear settlements tend to grow in size over time, and they eventually become trading centers depending upon their location. For example, if we find a linear settlement along a road, it means that these are hotspots for travelers. So eventually over the time, these places will be crowded with car repairing shops, with petrol pumps, and also dhabas or restrooms will help travelers to take some rest along these shops and houses that are present along the road. So this is how linear settlements become trading centers. Now besides that, if such settlements are found along river banks, it means that there are places good for the loading and unloading of commodities and passengers by different ships. Another example could be the establishment of linear settlements along railway lines, which means that with the presence of such settlement along railway lines, the need for a railway station will be felt soon, and eventually it will become a railway stop. So we see how linear settlements grow in size and eventually become important trading centers. Now the third type of settlement that we find in topographical map is scattered or dispersed settlement. Now we just saw nucleated settlement and linear settlement, but we can also see some red squares that are neither clustered in nature, or they are neither along the roads and railways, but they are dispersed and scattered throughout the map. So these settlements that are dispersed and scattered, or they are far away from each other, are categorized as scattered settlements or dispersed settlements. So how do we define them? Well, these settlements are the ones in which huts or houses are far apart from each other and they show sparse population. So scattered settlements look somewhat like this. So this is the arrangement of scattered settlements. So we can see on the map how huts and buildings are scattered in different places and they are neither clustered nor present along roads and railways. So these are what are scattered settlements. Now since they are dispersed and scattered across the map, they usually denote a sparse population or low population, and they do not have access to proper roads. So in the absence of proper roads, we see that the huts and houses are connected through cart tracks and paths. Now in these areas where the houses are scattered at a long distance from each other, cattle rearing is generally practiced in these settlements. That is, cattle rearing is an important activity that we can see in and around scattered or dispersed settlements. Now where do we find such settlements? Well, a very good example of such settlement is the farmhouses of grasslands in North America and Australia. So here is an image that shows us the scattered or dispersed type of settlement. So here we understood that settlements on the basis of their arrangement or their distribution pattern could be of three types. They could either be nucleated, that is, where the huts and houses are clustered together in an area, and these are usually found in plains and valleys with the presence of other essential factors like communication lines. And nucleated settlements, because of their arrangement pattern, are also known as clustered settlements. Now, settlements could also be linear in nature. That is, those settlements that are found along railway lines, roads, or along river banks. And these settlements usually grow in size and become important trading centers. Finally, settlements could also be scattered or dispersed. Now, in such settlements, the huts and houses are present at a good distance from each other and usually have a sparse population and do not have access to proper roads, and they are connected through cart tracks and paths. These are places where cattle rearing is an important activity. So in this lesson, we were able to understand the importance of colors on topographical maps, how settlements that we find in topographical maps or we locate in topographical maps could be categorized on the basis of the term for which people are living and working in area, and also on the basis of the pattern of arrangement. So on the time period, the settlements could either be temporary or permanent, and on the arrangement pattern, the settlements could either be nucleated, scattered, or linear. Thus, topographical maps, which are an acute representation of all the physical features present on the Earth's surface, including both natural as well as man-made features, are very important for the study of any given geographical area. We understood in all these lessons how topographical maps have different features that help us define or determine the different types of landforms or physical features in a given area. And we all would agree that these maps are quite interesting to look at and fun to work with. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million-plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock test. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.